Hello. Thank you, Maideita Korea, South Korea Hub, for giving us an opportunity to share our experiences with enabling Maidata operator services. My name is Lal Chandran. I'm the CTO and co-founder of iGrant.io. Let me start the presentation by giving some background about iGrant.io. iGrant.io is a company based out of Stockholm, Sweden, with operations focusing primarily in the Nordics and in India. It is a data exchange platform focusing on providing access to personal data while being fully auditable and compliant to GDPR-like regulations. We are a trusted data operator platform awarded the certification by the Maidata operator community for the last 2 years, both in 2020 and 2021. Organizations invest in digitalization for many reasons. It could be for enhanced decision-making. It could be to improve operational efficiency or to create new business opportunities. For this, it requires access to data. And not just any data or big data. What is required in our mind is access to the right data. And most of that data, we believe, is personal. For any company who wish to protect their digitalization investment, we believe they must make sure that they are on the right side of the law when it comes to the use of personal data, and also need to ensure that the people or the citizens continue to say yes to sharing their data, and that we believe is not that easy. To give you a little bit of a background about how the internet has typically worked. So if you look at the past, for example, the internet companies have operated in an unregulated, non-transparent manner. So they've been internally aggregating large amounts of data. And majority of data is also, there's no guarantee that it's of high quality. So if you look at any kind of examples, you can increasingly see that the information that all these big tech companies have is not really entirely reliable. And that could also be because of the lack of trust people have on these organizations because of issues like the Cambridge Analytica and so on. At iGrant.io, we believe a future which is regulated when it comes to the data, which is transparent towards users, and which we believe will be about accessing data beyond the organizational boundaries, where organizations can seamlessly exchange information across their organizational boundaries. When organizations are into sharing information between their organization silos, one aspect that is extremely important is the data quality itself. So what we believe is important when such an ecosystem of data exchange companies exists is to enable and enhance verification mechanisms that guarantees the quality of the data that is actually being exchanged in terms of its authenticity and in terms of its quality and trustworthiness in itself, which we believe is what we call as the right data. So to give you a little bit of a background about what iGrant.io is about, iGrant.io is a Maidata operator. It is also, we call it also the data intermediary services to comply with the EU Data Governance Act that has come out late last year. So you can see iGrant.io as a company that enables an end-to-end exchange of information between two companies. In this picture, there's organization A and organization B. Here, organization A and B is able to either expose and consume data between each other, and all with the agreement or consent from the end user or the end citizen. The service is offered as a service where any organization wanting to expose or consume or data can register to iGrant.io or similar Maidata operator intermediaries, whereby they can enable the exchange of information. if you look at the business opportunities that are offered by a typical MyData operator like such as iGrant.io is providing access to right data that reduces the risk when it comes to GDPR-like compliance, that empowers users, providing them with adequate transparency, and thereby engaging with them where businesses can continue to gain access to quality data. And last but not the least, iGrant.io-like services enables data which can actually be monetized by these organizations at high quality. As a platform, if you look at it, there are two key services that iGrant.io offers. One we call as an active data exchange. Active data exchange is where an organization is able to consume data physically or digitally from a consumer. So in this case, the user is carrying his or her data in what is called as a data wallet and is able to seamlessly exchange that information to organization B. In this case, organization A is the issuer of the data. So I often use the example from the banking industry. So you can see active data exchange very similar to how a typical banking transaction works when it comes to the use of credit card. So if you're using credit card to a kiosk, for example, you typically insert your credit card or tap your credit card on an NFC blip and enter your PIN code, enabling an exchange of money from your credit card provider or your bank to the organization or the kiosk that you're purchasing from. We do a very similar kind of thing where the only difference is, of course, that the information is not just about money, it's about any data that you can handle, basically. The second mode of exchange is what we call as a passive data exchange that happens between two organizations. In this case, the individual itself is involved in a passive manner where individual could have agreed, for example, in this case, individual could have agreed to organization A to share his or her data to organization B and vice versa. On the right side, we have a bunch of tooling. One is the data regulatory compliance tooling, everything around GDPR or similar data regulations emerging worldwide. We also provide a user preference management system where an individual have complete visibility on what information is used or consumed by an organization or shared towards any third party, etc., whereby they can exercise their data subject rights in an effective manner. And last but not the least, we also provide a data wallet, which can be easily be white labeled by any organization. So you can see data wallet as like an agent that can easily be used to communicate and in terms of exchange of data between two organizations. At this point, let me quickly give a demo of our solution. So on my screen, I have my mobile phone on my left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, let me go to our use case area. So I'm going to show you a demonstration of a typical, since we are living in the COVID times, I'm going to demonstrate how a individual can carry his or her COVID certificate, for example, in a data wallet and exchange it towards a third party, and the kind of services that actually typically is enabled by MyData operator. On the left side, let me start my data wallet. And as you can see my passport, and you can see a couple of COVID vaccination certificates that I have, and these are all real data. Typically, these are like the vaccination certificates that are issued by Swedish Health Authority, for example. And in this example, I'm going to actually show you how I'm able to use this information to exchange it towards any third party. The third party here is a travel company that has registered its requirement in a MyData operators such as iGrant.io saying that they would like to have access to the individual's name and the vaccination dosage information. And once that configuration is made via a data agreement, it results, they are able to actually generate a QR code, such as the one you see on the screen, for example. Now, once you can imagine this whole system to be used by, for example, a travel company, and you're about to check in, or in the check-in desk, for example, there's a QR code where you are asked to show your data. And in this case, it's a COVID data that they are requesting for. So I, as an individual on the left side, has to now show my COVID certificate to the travel company. So I click the share data button and I scan the QR code that is present on the check-in desk. And in this example, you can see that there are multiple certificates, multiple data points that are there in my wallet. One is the one is for dosage 2, and the other is for dosage 1. And you can also see a data agreement policy that actually is associated with any exchange of information. And you can at the very top, you can see that it's a travel company based out of Stockholm, Sweden, which is requesting this information, who has actually configured this QR code, so as to say. So once I'm happy with this data agreement that is presented to me, I click the confirm button to enable the exchange of data to the travel company. And you can see that a green tick mark appears, and the information about my name and dosage is exchanged to the third party, in this case, the travel company. So the whole transaction in itself is fully auditable. So if I may go to the settings on my data wallet, you can see the My Shared Data option. You can clearly see what information has been transferred to whom. So in the very top, 29 seconds ago, you can see that I have exchanged my COVID data, my name and my vaccination dosage information to a travel company based out of Stockholm, Sweden. I can also see the data agreement policy I've actually signed, etc. So it's essentially enabling a very similar kind of dynamics that is existing, for example, today in the banking domain. One more example I would like to show is also how a MyData operator can also enable the authenticity of the information. So the tick mark over here is indicating, the green tick mark here is indicating that the information that actually has been exchanged from my data wallet, which is coming from a health issuer, is not tampered with, and it's actually authentic in nature. So it's guaranteeing the authenticity of the issuer as well as the authenticity of the data. And the travel company is also able to independently verify this using digital signatures. And the entire mechanism we have enabled is via a decentralized mechanism such as a distributed ledger. So let me show you one more example. In this case, we have combined multiple data points. In this case, the travel company says that, okay, I would like to receive the name of the person, the country from he is a citizen of, and then a bunch of other information related to the COVID vaccination, such as the dosage information and the vaccination vaccine manufacturer, for example. So again, I click the share button and I scan the QR code. And I can see, for example, that in this case, now the agreement contains the passport as well as the EU COVID data. And I'm happy about the whole data exchange per se. And I confirm to the exchange of data, which gets exchanged to the travel company. And the travel company can, again, independently verify the authenticity of the whole thing. So the beauty of the whole solution is that a MyData operator such as iGrant.io is enabling even a possibility to combine data from multiple sources, enabling a possibility of selective disclosure of data and so on, in a way. So if I may continue with my presentation now, before I go ahead, I want to give a little bit of a clarity on what a typical data agreement workflow is all about. So, and this is by the way a project that we did as part of a next generation internet consortium, whereby we enabled a scenario where every exchange of information is based on a data agreement. And data agreement is a way to capture the conditions for any organizations to exchange their data. And they can also provide receipts for any information that actually is used towards the consumers, basically. So in this case, there are 4 different steps: the definition, preparation, capture, and proof. The definition preparation stage is where an organization is taking into use any existing data agreement or producing their own data agreement. Basically, any organization that actually requires to either expose data or consume data is making or preparing a data agreement, whereby they are clearly defining the purpose of usage and a bunch of other parameters, such as like the exact precise data points that they're actually consuming, etc. And once they do it, they publish it towards the end users. And the end users, as you noted in the case of an actual data exchange, every information actually is presented with a presentation system along with the data agreement. And it is the data agreement that the individual actually is signing off, where once they accept that the organizations then can consume their data. And that whole information actually is captured and signed both by the organization and the individual, which can actually be audited independently by any third-party provider. So just to summarize a little bit of a architecture of a typical MyData operator. So we have pretty much reused all the functional modules that are part of the MyData exchange layer, right from identity and access management, permissions and consents to data storage, etc. And all these things are available as microservices that are actually exposed as a REST API that can be consumed by different interfaces and by clients, individual clients, such as the data wallet, for example. Into this MyData operator system, different organizations can be either a data source or a data using service. We are also able to support different identity providers, such as the national ID system, and also we can support any third-party ledgers that could very well be used by the company. So what I showed in the demo today was essentially a mechanism where an organization was issuing a data. In this case, the organization was the Swedish Healthcare Authority. They had issued the data in the form of an X509 certificate that was onboarded onto a data wallet. And when it was all onboarded, of course, there is a data agreement that is signed. And then that information is being consumed by any third party. And this entire process is what we call as the active data exchange, as I alluded to before. And all this information is completely enabled by a verifiable ledger. And that ledger can either be an iGrant.io ledger or any third-party ledger. So we also have a passive data exchange enabled in our system, where organizations can exchange information between each other. The only fundamental difference is that there is no data wallet involved in a traditional way, where the individual is not carrying the data himself or herself. The data is very much within the organization, and the organizations are purely executing on the agreement that is being signed by the consumer or the individual themselves. And of course, all this data, again, all this infrastructure, all this exchange is also supported by a ledger, very similar to how it actually happens with an active data exchange. With that note, I come to a conclusion to my presentation today. So just to summarize a typical MyData operator, what it enables is a agreement-driven exchange of information, and also enabling full auditability of every transaction that is out there. Each and every transaction is auditable in terms of the data compliance. And this is enabled by what I mentioned as the data agreement, where the compliance information is actually configured into the MyData operator. With that note, I come to the conclusion of this presentation. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to contact us. You can contact me directly or at support@igrand.io. And feel free to reach out via My Data Operator Slack as well. Thank you so much for today.